Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. A usual welcome to all of our regular subscribers. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. When you're here, welcome to the Root of the Science family. We love to have you, and make sure you check out past episodes, as well as sure that you check out past episodes, and also that you go subscribe and like and review. It's a very special day today, actually, because a year ago today, I released my first episode where I recorded manually. So yay, this is really, really big. And I'm so pleased that on this day, I get to release an episode with the most amazing guest. We had such a great time talking. I mean, I say this a lot about my guest, but really we did. And her name is Dr. Edith Phalane. She's from South Africa and currently a postdoc fellow in environmental health at the University of Johannesburg in South Africa. At the time of this recording, she had just been awarded her PhD in physiology, so we didn't really talk much about her postdoc research, but that's just very important for you to keep in mind. Anyway, in this episode, we learned that Edith was from a small village in South Africa, and from a young age, she was always intrigued with how the body worked. Her mother and uncle had the opportunity of going to the university. Now, this was a major accomplishment back then, and that gave her a direction on where to go after high school, which was university, and pursue a degree. She unfortunately didn't qualify for medicine, but instead took a BSc degree in majoring in physiology. She was always curious and wanted to learn more and more, and went on to pursue an honors, master's, and finally a PhD. Like I said earlier, she's recently completed her PhD and got awarded the title of doctor. She takes us through the journey, especially going through a PhD in a pandemic and taking care of 2 kids, up until the day she hit send and submit her thesis. We learned that her research project for her PhD focused on the longitudinal cardiovascular health of South Africans living with HIV. We hear about this very fascinating research, and it's important. So tune in as we hear about her inspiring journey and, of course, so much more. Let's go. Hi, Edith. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you for hosting me. I'm good, and you?
I am brilliant, and as always, I'm always so excited to have another amazing woman in STEM onto the show, and you are one of those ladies who I look up to, so it's an honor for me to be talking to you today.
Thank you, and that is such a beautiful compliment.
Now, anyway, for the purpose of this interview, can you please just give us a quick introduction? Who is Edith? Where are you from? Where are you currently based? And in brief, what are you currently doing?
Okay, Edith Phalane was born and bred in Limpopo province, where I grew up and I did most of my primary and secondary schooling, after which I proceeded to University of Limpopo. I did my undergrad in Bachelor of Science, and then I continued into postgraduate studies, where today I've currently completed my PhD in physiology. And Edith is also a mother to 2 children, a girl and a boy. And I'm also a sister. So I have 2 sisters. And also I'm a child of God. If you don't find me cooked up in my studies, you'll definitely find me in church. So Edith is born and bred in the rural villages of Amorovoya, rising up to be this scientist that I am today, to define the stereotypes that background can define where you come from. Yeah, that's who basically Edith is.
Yeah, I love it. Edith is so multifaceted, and like you said, defying all of these stereotypes. We love it. We love it. In your intro, you also mentioned that you are a mom, with the 2 kids who you absolutely adore. And also, also in the intro, you mentioned that you do a lot of things, church, being a student. So So this can be a lot for one person to get through. And sometimes you always feel like, oh gosh, there's not enough hours in a day for me to get everything done. So let's say, for example, you had an extra hour, you had a 25-hour day. If you're given that one day where you're allowed an extra hour, what would you do with that extra hour in a day?
With that extra hour, I'll switch off my phone. I'll mute my emails. To tell the truth, I will sit back and I will relax. I will just do me. Because from the moment I wake up, there's always a schedule. There's the kids. I must wake them up, prepare them for school. They go to school. While they are at school, I must make sure I manage my work. When they come back, I must make sure there's lunch prepared for them. When they come back, is their schoolwork, so it never stops. So if I have that one extra hour, I would definitely switch off and mute off my emails and my phone and just let it be about me.
I can imagine. Sometimes us who are doing the school thing and we don't have kids or we're not married and we think it's a lot. But when I listen to people who are moms and have families, I just sit there in awe and I'm like, you guys are the epitome of superwoman. I don't know how you do it. I really don't know how you do it. But however you do it, I admire you all so much because, wow.
Thank you. But one thing I have realized is that it also comes naturally. Yes, sometimes you get to a point where you are tired. You wish I can just have my own time. But most of the things, because I didn't prepare most of the things into I wouldn't say I had dozens of time to prepare into being a mom. I didn't have a schedule up to know, okay, there's baby number 1 coming. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 this way. I didn't have that professional scheduling like that. Everything just came in and I had to manage and juggle. So some of the things, they just come naturally. And also with the gift that we are gifted with as women, we are multitaskers. We are able to work with what we have. So we adapt and we go on forward. So when that time comes for you, you'll see it will blend in nicely. You won't even know how you did it, but it will blend in nicely. All the things that you feared you wouldn't be able to do, you'll find that you will be able to do them. Yes.
Wow, no, I will definitely take your word for it when the time comes.
Definitely.
Not just yet. But anyway, back to you. You mentioned that you are a village girl at heart, right? So I think this is a great opportunity for us to find out the beginning before you were a mom, before you were all of these amazing things, a scientist. How did this young village girl end up knowing anything about STEM and getting into the world of physiology? So take us all the way back to that beginning.
Yes, as I've said, I'm a village girl. One limitation of growing up in the village is that you have limited access to resources, limited access to information. Mostly information you get it because you were told by somebody else. But still those people who still come up and say, oh, there's this opportunity in this and that, they are still limited. There are so many barriers that you have to face. And also you don't have examples in the community. Like if it's a physiologist, what does a physiologist look like? What do they do on their normal day-to-day? So it's a challenge. For me, I didn't know much about physiology. It's just that when I was in high school, I fell in love with life sciences, which is, it also had a composite of physiology. So I enjoyed life science. And I knew right then and there that whatever I'm going to do after this, it has to do with life science. I was intrigued in how the human body functions, how the human body is so intricate. So I wanted to know more. And one thing that I'm grateful is that my mom and my uncle, they had an opportunity to go to university. So I already knew that after matric, there's what we call university. And it's what they've been telling me that once you are done with matric, you must get good grades, you must go to university. So my mom said, okay, you are good with this science-related subject. How about you do medicine? So at that point, the only careers that were accessible to me that I knew about was being a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, a teacher, or nursing. Those were the careers that were the A careers that I knew about. So I said, okay, medicine will do. So after matric, I couldn't qualify into medicine. I said, you know what? I'm not going to be beating myself up because I couldn't qualify in that. Let me do something more related to the human body and health. Then that's when I took Bachelor of Science that had a composite of physiology. Then I fell more and more in love with physiology. After my degree, I was like, you know what? I want more. Let me do honors. I want to know more. Then after honors, I said, I still want to know more. So it was always a matter of, I want to know more. Then when I got into masters, I was with these invigilators and the practical assistants. They will call them Dr. Who. I'm like, why are you a doctor, but you are not in a hospital? How is that possible?
Yes.
And I always had this question from my undergraduate, but I never had the boldness to go up to the lecture and ask the lecturer, why are you a doctor, but you are teaching physics?
How?
So it's only up until when I was in masters now, because we could relate with the postgraduate students and some of them were supervising me. So I was able to ask them before I could enter into that, like, why are you a doctor, but you are here, you are teaching? And then that's when they explained the process of now, how do you go from the degree? And then I'm up to PhD. I said, okay, most definitely after my master's, I'm getting into a PhD. That's how it went. So at that stage, while I was still growing up and when I was in high school, I didn't know much about physics. I did not even know that I could do physiology or something we call Bachelor of Science. It was only those careers, medicine, being a lawyer, engineer, teacher, because my mom and my uncle, they trained as teachers and my mother later trained as a nurse. So those were the only careers that I knew. These other ones, it's only when I got at university first year level, they said, oh, you could register for this. And I said, okay, it's fine. I can do that.
It's really great that you had that exposure of your parents going to, your parents, be it your mom and your uncle, going to university. I think you were privileged in that way because not many other people who are in the village even know that that's an option to further career. And for them, even going to school is also another privilege where some people don't even go. So I think it's really commendable that you had your parents who took you there. And also another important thing that you mentioned, that at that time, all you know is doctor, lawyer.
Exactly.
That's all you know. And only when you start meeting these people, you're like, oh, you can be a doctor without being in the hospital.
Yes.
And to somebody else, it might sound like, how do you not know that? But to others, it's really something that they do not know, that there's something called a PhD where you can be called a doctor. And and you're not in the hospital, and you are almost at that stage right now. You've recently just submitted, completed your PhD in physiology with the Northwest University. Firstly, congratulations.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you.
How do you feel? How does it feel coming from that point? Like, if you could just take a moment, I'm sure when it happened, to just reflect from being that person who had no idea that this was possible, and you being at that end when you finally, I think now with the pandemic, it was all via sending an email. Hey, you send that email and it's gone and it's somebody else's problem. And now after this, you just wait and you almost at that stage of being a doctor. How does that feel?
when I remember when I handed it in, to press, even before to press that send button, you say, okay, do I say send? Let me just stop. Let me go and look again from page 1 up to the last page. Let me just skim through that everything is there. Remember, if this is in, it's in. You can't change anything. So at that moment, I couldn't believe, because I've been working on this project for the past 4 years. And in my mind, I told myself, in the next 3 years, I'll be done with my PhD. Then things happened. I had to add a year. So now when that time finally came, I'm submitting. I was like, are you sure? Are you sure things, you didn't miss something in between? So it was mixed emotions. One moment I was happy. In another moment, I couldn't let it go. But I had to submit and say, send it in. And to tell the truth, every day you think about it, you are like, I wonder what my reviewers are saying. And there were moments where, I'm telling you, there were moments where I would go open that document. I will check, even though I've submitted, I'll check, isn't there a mistake somewhere? Or I'm sure everything is put in accordingly. But I had to calm myself in. I said, Edith, leave it alone. Trust in the process. Trust in God. Leave it. Let the reviewers do their part. Even if there's something you didn't put in, you can't change it. So you have done your part. Let it be. And then that day when I finally received my result, I remember my supervisor called me. I even told her, Prof, you never call me. So when you call me like this, I'm worried. I told her, I said, you never call me. So when you call me now, I'm worried. She said, well, I have your PhD result here. I said, right now, I don't know whether I should be what kind of worried that you have to call me. She said, no, this is important. I had to call you and tell you. I said, okay, let me sit down. And then that's when she told me, no, you did very well. Your examiners loved your work. Beautiful. You passed. You have some few comments that you have to work through. And after that, everything is finalized. I just said, Prof, I'm going to remove your phone from your ear, because now I'm going to scream. I screamed on top of them. I screamed. And when I was done, I said, yes, Prof. And we did all the congratulatory stuff. And my kids, even after I finished speaking with my supervisor, they were shocked, because I was not talking to anybody. I was just saying, thank you. Oh, thank you, sir. I was just grateful. I was I was just on my knees. I was just rolling down. I couldn't believe. I was like, me, I'm done. So even now, when they've sent me the result for the final result, saying when is the graduation, I still pause. I'm like, okay, we are done now. So you are Dr. Edith. Even when I get emails where it says Dr. Edith Phalane, I'm like, oh, me. All right, me. So I'm like, okay, maybe I need to go through the graduation process and it will fully sink in. But, I look back, I'm like, wow. If you told me when I was still in high school or when I have started with my degree that one day I will be a PhD graduate, I think someone would not have believed you. Because there's no way a village girl who grew up carrying wood on her head, who grew up going to the river to wash clothes, to carry water, who walked an hour to get to school, crossing through river, crossing through bushes, safety measures, there was a worry. So if you told me back then, I wouldn't have really completely believed. I would have said maybe. So today I look back, I'm like, God, thank you. You know what? This can only be by your grace, really. And I'm grateful. And I was telling myself that is also an opportunity for me to be an example to the many others in the community, to say, if I could do it, born in the very same rural village area, you can also do it. Because at our time, I didn't have that example. So it's also that moment for me also to say I need to also be an example for the others that are coming behind me. So it also comes with a sense of responsibility. It's not just only a title, but it has a lot of responsibility for me also to pay it back.
Definitely. Your story just gives me such happy goosebumps just hearing that emotion. I felt like I was there that day when all of this happened. So officially, congratulations. I cannot wait to, I don't even know if it'll be a virtual graduation again. But regardless, we cannot wait to see the pictures of the graduation. It's absolutely brilliant that you are that role model for so many young people. And in fact, you've been recognized. You were one of the inspiring 50 women in South Africa last year. So definitely people are recognizing, and you are that person. And yeah, congratulations, Dr. Edith.
Thank you, Anne.
Congratulations. Before we go into what you did for your PhD, I just think it's important for us to just talk about, you brought it on that you thought you'd finish your PhD in 3 years, but I mean, life happens, and then you added another year. And also you completed your PhD in what was probably the hardest year for anyone just living. But on top of that, you're adding a PhD to the mix. So I just wanted to ask you, how did you manage to do this? And what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome that, that build you in this success story of you being Dr. Edith today?
I think for me, because one of the biggest challenge for me was having to take my kids and stay with them, because when I was doing my master's and in the first 2 years of my PhD, I was not staying with them. They were staying with their grandmother. So I had enough time to do what I needed to do with my work. So in my third year of PhD, I had to take them and they had to come stay with me and live with me. So that was a very big adjustment for me. I had to change so many things around. I was used to it's me and my PhD and church. Now there were the kids in the mix. So that was one year that really tried me and tested me, 2019 and 2020. Because now when the kids were there, I had to make sure they come first and the studies come second. So somewhere my studies also took a knock, because I had to always make sure the kids, their things are first priority. My studies I will manage. So that emotionally, I did not really prepare for that. I didn't realize how much of responsibility it was really going to be to stay with them full time and see them full time. Because for me, during the day, I used to work very well. Now the kids are here. I have to change my schedule around. There's no longer you can work from 7 to 7. The kids have to feature somewhere. So that, I think, emotionally, the emotional responsibility, I did not really put it into time. The time management that was needed for me to put all of these things into order, I didn't really, because it was a rushed matter. So I didn't have enough time to put everything into place. So it took me time for me to get used to them. But one way or the other, I had to sit back and reflect. I had to sit back and go back and look at my schedule. What do I need to move out so that it can only be the important thing? So I had to cut out most of the me times that I had with friends, the going out. So I had to cut it out and I had a bigger circle. I had to make my circle smaller so that I can manage my things and make sure right now is the kids, is the PhD, and is graduation your PhD. And also in 2020, it was the COVID-19. Kids were not going to school. So almost all the work at school, the teachers were sending to us as parents. I now not only have to be a mother, I also had to be a teacher. Even now, I'm still doing that. So I had to be a teacher, and I still have to be a student to my own PhD work. So it was a lot. That's when I even valued their teachers more. I'm like, how do you get these kids to even understand this concept? I'm telling you, and by the time that I was done, because it was not just assisting with homework, it was teaching them, starting the basics from fresh. By the time I was finished with the two of them, really having time to look at my work, it was an emotional toll. By the time I was finished, so I couldn't even have enough time to go and look at my work and do my work. It was a lot. Monday to Monday, you are teaching a concept. By the time when my work has to come into play, it was not easy. It was not consistent all the time. Then there's a matter of multitasking, adaptability. Then you still sit, if I didn't do that chapter, nothing won't change. The chapter will still be standing there. Whether you have to teach your kids, you don't have to teach your kids. At the end of the day, you have a PhD to finish. Whether you have help or you don't have help, the PhD must move forward. So it's still that time again. You sit back, you reflect, you sacrifice other things, you make sure kids and then the schoolwork move forward. And eventually you find a balance. But at first, it wasn't always easy, and it affected my work progress because I'm not a teacher. And now, and the kids, sometimes when you talk with them, they see their mother. They don't take you serious. Whereas their teacher, if their teacher said, sit, we are doing this, they do it. You will fight the whole day. You will be on their case the whole day just to get one concept through. But their teacher just takes them an hour, a few hours. So also that frustration that when you speak with them, they don't really listen to you. You are their mother, mama. You are not their teacher. So, but one way or the other, you have to build that discipline in them. That if this is the time for this, is the time for this. With me and mama right now, we can't be playing. So but one way or the other, still again, you adapt and you find a balance and you keep it going. So 2019 and 2020, it was a matter of now multitasking, adapting to me now staying with the kids, because all this time I was not staying with them in the COVID pandemic, not only being a mother and also being a full-time teacher. It's not easy, but one way or the other, you adapt.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we read these articles about how the burnout and how much more stress the pandemic had on female researchers and female scientists, because you had to, like you said, you had to be a mom and you had to teach and you have to cook, and sometimes being a male scientist, it was I don't want to say it was easier, but they didn't have all of those other responsibilities as you do as a mom. And it really did affect so many people. I think I read an article saying, and it's even now that in the beginning the percentage was lower with the amount of people who not affected, but now I think it's even increased, where the respondents of female in 2021, it's even way worse now, because it's like you living 2.0 again this year. So it's really commendable. It's really commendable that you managed, and definitely own when that day comes of you getting up on that stage and wearing that crown and you being addressed as doctor. You must do so with all of the pride. So I'd like to now just talk about what you did for your PhD. Your research project was focused on longitudinal cardiovascular health of South Africans living with HIV. So this was in the field of physiology, and you did it at Northwest University in South Africa. So can you please tell us more about this work that took up most of your life for 4 years? And And why is it so important that you did that research?
I will start with why is it so much important, cardiovascular diseases, as some they know it as heart diseases or diseases of the heart. Examples can be heart attack or stroke. And these cardiovascular diseases, they are one of the leading factors of mortality and morbidity, not just in South Africa, but globally. According to Statistics South Africa, cardiovascular disease, they are after HIV and TB and respiratory disease, they are fourth in line as the causes of mortality in South Africa, but globally in generally, they are the major causes of mortality and morbidity. And when you look in the HIV-infected population, already those who are infected with HIV, their health is already compromised just with the HIV infection. Now, when you have to add cardiovascular to that, their quality of life is further hampered, especially that HIV is also increases the risk of developing cardiovascular diseases, and also the treatment that they are taking, the antiretroviral therapy. Some of the treatment, especially what we call the protease inhibitors, they are associated with high blood pressure, associated with diabetes, associated with insulin-resistant kidney failure, liver diseases. So all those factors, they contribute to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And the challenge is that this development of cardiovascular diseases, especially in the HIV-infected population, we don't fully understand how the development comes about. So that's what initiated my study, to contribute to that understanding of how does cardiovascular disease develop over time in HIV-infected individuals over time, because they are now living with HIV for that long. They are no longer previously, before the treatment, most people, they were dying because there was no treatment. They were progressing faster into AIDS. But now, because of the treatment, they are living longer. So over time is important for us to understand, as they live longer on treatment, what is happening to their cardiovascular health? What are the risk factors that we can identify, that we can be able to pick up that this one, if she has this risk factor, she will be at a higher risk of developing cardiovascular disease. So that's what I was basically doing with my study. I looked at those factors in terms of what are they eating, are they physically active, those who drink alcohol, those who smoke, because it increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. You check that, what is the relation between the smoking and the cardiovascular disease in this HIV-infected population. You check their body weight. Do they have normal body weight or not? And how does that contribute to cardiovascular disease? The glucose level. Glucose is the sugar level, and also looking at the lipid profile, and also how their kidneys functioning, and also the liver function, to try to determine the cardiovascular disease risk. And with my study, we did see that over time, their kidney function and the liver function, somehow it was deteriorating, although the values, they were not above to show that they already have kidney diseases or liver diseases, but already we could see some alteration in how their kidney and their liver functioning was. And that is also associated with cardiovascular disease, also in terms of their lipid profile. To some of the lipids were normal, some were not normal. So we saw that over time, if we really need to understand the cardiovascular disease, they need further monitoring. So it's not something that you can say at this stage, we found it normal, leave it as it is. It's something that needs longitudinal monitoring, because they're going to continue to be on treatment. So we also suggest that more studies need to be done, because it was a longitudinal study in an aspect that especially in sub-Saharan Africa, we have few studies that are longitudinal, because if you do over long time, you are able to do cause and effect. But most of the studies that we have is cross-sectional studies. You can only assume. So we need more of the longitudinal studies. So one of the strongest points of my thesis was that it also had a longitudinal aspect to it, to see over time what happens. But we still need more of those to substantiate what I have found out, because we cannot substantiate it with just one study. We need more longitudinal studies to come through, especially that sub-Saharan Africa, it contributes a higher percentage of the HIV infections, and also cardiovascular diseases are increasing at an alarming rate in sub-Saharan Africa, especially hypertension as a risk factor of cardiovascular disease is increasing at an alarming rate. And hypertension, we call it a silent killer. You don't know it unless you put on that blood pressure machine and they check your blood pressure. Diabetes also is increasing. Obesity also, it's high. So within sub-Saharan Africa, there's a need for us to have those longitudinal studies to understand the cardiovascular disease development over time.
This is so interesting, Edith, and it's no wonder that I'm sure your examiners also found it quite interesting. And, it's something that one would think a lot more studies are actually should actually be conducted on it. And it's a pity that aren't. So it's really, really fascinating that there are these links between these two. What in isolation they seem like two completely isolated problems. But now, with the way that we are living and the way that we are living more of a sedentary lifestyle. That's the word. More people are prone to these types of to these cardiovascular diseases. So that's absolutely quite fantastic. And we can't wait to read about the papers when they come out, or are they already out?
Yes, the papers are already out. In fact, today, one of my articles got accepted.
Wow.
So with us,
we're celebrating today.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
We are celebrating. Thank you. With us in Northwest University, we do an article format. Your thesis, you do it in an article format where you have to prepare 3 manuscripts. And at least 2 must be published before you graduate. So before I graduated, I was able to publish 2. And then today I got my last article for the PhD. It got accepted. So I'm like, what?
Congratulations.
Yes,
so all three are now you are a published author. Wow.
Yes, all 3 now are published. So I got the email today. So excited. One thing is that with this one that got accepted today, this journal I've been submitting to them. I remember my MSc article I submitted to them, it got rejected. That moment, rejection.
It's painful.
Research. It got rejected, and I love this journal, HIV Medicine. I submitted my first PhD paper, it got rejected. I submitted my second PhD paper, it got rejected. But still with my 3rd article, I said, you know what, I'm still going to submit to this journal. I want this journal. So I submitted. Here we are today after 1 major revisions.
Wow.
It got accepted.
Congratulations. It's definitely
Thank you.
Definitely a day to celebrate. And look at you, Miss Village Girl, who's now a published author.
Miss Village Girl.
It's you. Your story is just so inspiring, Edith. It just brings me so much joy. And as we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, if somebody else who's listening to our conversation and they're inspired by your story, what sort of words of wisdom would you like to impart to them about entering the world of STEM or just life in general?
When it comes to entering the life of STEM, science is very exciting. There's always new development every time. I love the fact that with research, you set hypotheses out there and you go in to test them. You are not quite sure what will happen. You just throw yourself in there. So it's all an exciting journey and a learning journey on its own. So when it comes, and there's also challenges with STEM, like with us researchers, I was never prepared that, with articles, you can get rejected 7 times. And if you were not really prepared, I used to be disappointed. I will cry. I'll feel like I'm a failure. I'll feel like I don't know anything up until somebody spoke with me and say, it happens. Every researcher goes through that. When you go through that, you dust yourself up. You go to the next journal up until you get accepted. And then through this journey, I realized that don't enter into science if you don't love science. Or don't enter into any career if you don't love it. Do that thing because you love it. Because it's not every day that everything is going to be rosy and all that. That even when things are not going your way, you can still say, you know what? I am proud and I'm happy that I chose this journey. That you won't back out the minute when things don't work your way. But when things don't go the way that you want, you look at those challenges, you look them as an avenue to come up with other means on how to march forward. So do STEM or any other career because you love it. And challenges will be there, but always know that in those challenges, it is a platform for you to also strive, because you take those challenges, you must find solution to them. I remember one of my friends, Dr. Blessing Ayente, always told me that challenges, they are a platform for promotion. So for you to be promoted, you must overcome something. So when you see challenges, celebrate, say, thank you, Jesus. Another way is coming through for me. So, I literally took that in, that when challenges come, I must come with a solution. And when I came with a solution, I'm a conqueror. I have overcame. So that's how I look at it for me. Do what you love. When challenges come, you can still strive above those challenges. Look, or always focus where you are going. Don't let anything that you come across along the way deviate you from that. Just focus to the end goal, where you are going, provided that you do what you love. It's very important.
Wow, that's wonderful advice, not only for STEM, but just in life in general. And you are the exhibit A of being that person. I love it when people give advice in the sense of them living that advice, not just that wishy-washy advice but you don't live that advice. And for you, we've heard it through this conversation that you've lived through your challenges and you've been promoted from your challenges. So if anybody can believe it, they should take your word for sure. They should take your word. And Dr. Edith, I should just now, I should get it right. Dr. Edith, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Oh, and thank you very much for also inviting me, because I have always been looking at you on Twitter. And I said, one day, Annie's going to send me a message and say, hello. I remember one day I said, I must send Annie a message and say, Anne, why don't you invite me?
Why didn't you? We could have skipped all this time.
But I was
sometimes even me, I'm slow.
So it's really an honor. You should have seen me the whole day. I was like, okay, even my uncle is like, what is with you? I said, if only you can understand that I'm gonna have this superb interview. You won't, but don't worry. I'll send you the audio once it's done. I'll send it through.
Done.
Oh, so
awesome.
Today is an accomplishment because you were on one of my, because I list down the things that I must do. So now I'm gonna say tick. Interview with Enchisa. Done. We move next.
next one. Edith,
so
you're
thank you
me
so
blush.
much. Thank you.
No, it's an absolute pleasure having you. And I really, really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And we could talk the whole evening.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we have to wrap it up here. And to everybody else who's listening and who's heard your story, thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of the Root of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Until next time, goodbye.